far and wide. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program Inside the Then and Now platform, broadcasting to you today, Sunday, the very first day of November 2020. I am your host and presenter, Prince Emil Kroma, with a very special guest who I will introduce shortly. All the one they will watch from different parts of the world, we want to say welcome, Brother Melvin from Manchester, Sister Fatma Tasseri from Minnesota, Sister KJ from London, and Brother Dumbuya. Welcome to the program. We lost we guest. If you can send me, let me just have a look. Okay, we still get Chernor. Okay, Chernor is still in the waiting room. Okay, that's brilliant, brilliant. Okay, like I've been saying, Fambulem, this is now a very special day and a very special interview from a very special person. But before I go into this, I want provoke Fambulem small, and I want to talk about the issue of investigative journalism. Waiting on investigative journalism, while a lot of us may know, a lot of us may not know. So therefore, it is essential, it is right, it is imperative that what we want to talk about today, we tell people what it look like. In other words, we want to set the premise for this interview here tonight, a very special one. So investigative journalism, now people are working involved in systematic inquiry, okay? They can take their own time for go about things systematically for analyze some things the way they go on, and mostly now things that were not good because now hidden things them, okay? Then work can be original, it can get depth, it can get width, and it's not easy for let them go about them. Because like you say, with something systematic, you get for understand what thing that they mean. What they can do in this process is they can form an hypothesis, and from out of that hypothesis, they can try for determine, via the hypothesis on which thing they go on. But it's largely theoretical. Remember, they get a body of work. So like any good policeman, any good lawyer, any good judge, you go on a hypothesis, but you want to know the rest. You want to know exactly what it is. So you apply something which will be almost like a scientific method. And the scientific method will equal to you, they form a theory inside your head. And that theory, the way they form, now they go on for go test. For see all the things that we don't put together, all this body of work where they before you, whether it amount or sufficient for let you put them out there for say this is my conclusion. So you see investigative journalists, they get a lot for do. They can use plenty of public records and data. The reason why they bring this to now because a lot of this has happened over a period of time, and then we can get confused in the social space within the difference between just kuku jumuku media and an investigative journalist. Now make I try for bring this canto now. You don't ever read the terminology follow the trail, the money trail, not so. So when I talk about follow the money trail, mostly now we get something for do with an investigation. We go involve accountability and something where you want to do thorough, where you want for examine, get for do with corruption. So inside institutions the way we can know, but who of them thing they can absence like accountability. But through paper, when I say paper in this case, I talk about document, I talk about data, you trail data, you collect much public record. This now record that we already available because most of we knock in there for go look for the record and they will lay down. We probably dust don't grab. Few people like in there too because they are charged with a responsibility, a moral responsibility, a civic and constitutional responsibility for therefore bring the truth out to the people and not to make them, they make them up. Now documents them will lay down because everything government do or organization or institutions do, there is a record and that record they obviously can be stored. Over a period of time, it's just lying dusty. So when an investigative journalist come around, he want to find out something, that's exactly what they do. Then documents and then data now it can lead to basically the notion where they can come out with or the publication and where they can make. Sometimes they can leak the documents to them, okay? But always follow the money trail. What they can also do is things that we are secrets, where they can hide. Now they can pull now do imagine it can be very, very inconvenient for most people then. But again, because they get an obligation to the masses, and some people now out of empathy, out of sympathy, out of a feeling of social justice, now it can drive them for do them kind thing and they for go to the extent for do them kind work and they. Investigative journalists can embarrass most likely people in the public domain, government officials in particular. We get some hide business. We don't want for like come out in the public. Okay? Sometimes people can call them outrage. But the outrage is a good thing because it benefits the many and not the few. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a special role for journalists in this world where we live. But again, we want to narrow and down to a country, especially in a difficult period where we live in, politically speaking, in which we politics, every facet of our nation is polarized. Every facet of is kind of entrenched. People that believe in waiting and believe ideologically. If the thief man are you thief man, it's not a problem as long as that thief man then I'm a thief man. So we therefore acknowledge investigative journalists whether they do their work for go the far end for fetch information for putting on the public domain. Journalism for the people. Journalism is by the people. Journalism is actually a kind of a democratic process because inside the constitution of most countries, and I know certainly in Sierra Leone, you go find journalism a day inside it. It's a profession we're supposed based on integrity or integrity, some people will say, with adherence for moral courage, moral compass, ethical principles. But we know say a lot of it is lacking these days. But if you when it's lacking, there are many people within we missed, within we domain, we still carry themselves together moral, we operate with integrity. We still get an attachment with the people. We social justice now then cause. And then people and they now we for always they look up to for bringing out the information and where we so much want. They can be fearless and they must be fearless in their actions. When they ask uncomfortable answer, then when they shake and challenge, we perception them, we not for hesitate, for take the bull by the horn if you like. They should be our guardians of I think I said a lot of these ways I want to find today. And now in this, I want to introduce to now we guest tonight with a very special guest. I repeat, we get tonight a very, very special guest. He's notable in a publisher, in a politician, and in a journalist. He happened to be the former spokesman for the NDA political party. He's the chairman of the African Socialist Movement. Back in 2012, we believe say he aspired to become a member of parliament, I think from the Bombardier district or somewhere around McKinney. Okay, imagine 2012, imagine McKinney, imagine a man who was speaking against the government then, and bear in mind what McKinney means, okay? He's a politician, and he's also a civil rights activist. He's an author, and he's also a publisher, and the list goes on and on. Ladies and gentlemen, and Mr. Bah, welcome to the program, then and now, sir.
Thank you very much. Brother. Done a long.
Hello, Mr. Bah, are you there?
Thank you very much.
Mr. Bah, hang on right there, sir. I know they hear you. I know say you they hearing me. I know they hear you for some reason. Yeah. Let me just see whether the audience they hear you. This was my same fear. We'll get huge question that I have for ask today. So we need for them on the ball. Really need for them on the ball. Okay. Mr. Bah?
You hear me now?
Yes, I hear you, sir. And I believe you say you hear all the introduction.
Definitely. And thank you very much for the long.
Go ahead, sir. No worries. Yeah. Okay. So, Fambule Munadoyeri, today we get this very special guest in person of Mr. Bah. We don't need for more than talk already. Rush into the conversation here tonight. I want to call up a conversation. Now, Mr. Bah, if the last time I checked, first of all, I think say you've been studying as they do your doctorate or what have you. Where are we with this? Is it done? Are you still on it? If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, definitely. For the last 4 years now, I get a fellowship will allow me for take a break from the situation at Sierra Leone and come to Illinois. I do research in the Northwestern towards a PhD, almost on the finish line.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I do right now.
Well, congratulations in advance, sir. And if you can quickly help me with the journey so far. I mean, from Usai, all of this begin. Usai, because you look like a very young man to me, yet you look very accomplished, and still they pursue, they aspire. Usai this motivation come out, and Usai all of this started from. I mean, like a brief background of yourself, and Usai this motivation come out, which you pass through up to where you are today, if you don't mind, please.
Wow. I don't be prepared for that kind of question, but you know, then one whole book.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
a whole profile. But yeah, you know, the fact that we all get for find out, it's difficult for pinpoint exactly when you will become conscious in life about what thing you decide for do and how you want to be remembered for the most part. Um, but for me, I think growing up in a salon and looking around and looking at the poverty and studying history and looking at the country, traveling across Sierra Leone, traveling across the world. So one crucial question always occupies my mind: why a handful of individuals they live, wealthy, they live, prosperous, and seem to forget everything, and the greater majority of the population always they struggle for survive. So that kind of um, imbalance, that kind of inequality between a handful of individuals against the majority begin to raise a lot of questions. Of course, I grew up in a family where um, open and liberal for the most part. For example, my parents, we were Muslims, born into Muslim families, but we went to Catholic schools. So we read both the Bible and the Quran at the same time. And so that will tell you the level of tolerance that the family in the first place, and the fact that we are allowed to go in search of knowledge. So looking at the society, you say you find yourself and begin ask them question around why people are poor, why levels of violence, and the radio was also constant in our household. So books, the radio, and the kind of debates within the family and outside help for politicize you at a very young age. So for the better part of my life, I just think about how do you contribute, to changing society, to making, to address these questions of poverty, underdevelopment, abuse. You look around, you see, for example, people that way in Pekin, you see how they oppress them, and you see, so the levels of injustice start from the home to the street, to the corridors of power, to institutions and all of that. And again, you own personal experience with some of these institutions, applying to schools, colleges, and the patronage networks and all of them. So you begin to say, oh, something is wrong. I have to do something about this situation. So this curiosity and the determination for see what will be the solution, I'm responsible for my decision now to say, we need for change history. We need for contribute to social development. I want to live in the memory of my people, both when I'm alive and even when I'm no more. So one way for do this, not true, for use the knowledge, the skill, and the experience where they get over time for, seek solutions to these questions and also participate in some kind of conversation, ongoing conversation in terms of how to address this. But it's difficult really for put a finger to a specific date in terms of when actually you decide to make this decision. But I believe, say again, we all cut out for particular things. So for me, over the years, I just find myself in this situation where I have to confront injustice, I have to confront oppression, I have to, be unsettled when I see abuse of human rights, I see injustice and all these things. Uh, I get an instant reaction to it from what they as a kid up to now. So immediately I see injustice. I see what people call somebody take advantage because you get a power, you get either financial power or any kind of power, against other person, you tend for seize advantage. Instantly I decide to say no. I come to the defense of that individual that's been marginalized, that's been oppressed, without being invited to it. So so that thing it runs in my veins over time. So in a way, I come to accept that now as a moral duty and a responsibility that my own comfort, my own peace, they come as a consequence of the peace of my neighbor and my fellow human being. I cannot find myself settled when I see somebody closer to me or from a distance is being oppressed. I definitely naturally will be forced.
Absolutely. And I think the question being absolutely relevant, because I did get calls from one or two sides of the aisle for something of this kind. So you provide an in-depth, really, and that's good, because then people begin to understand your moral courage, your fortitude, as a human being, and the challenges and waiting actually they motivate you, for go further. That issue of social justice, which brings me to the point that I don't know whether I mentioned them, but one of the things that you are known for is you happen to be, I think, the founder or chair for some movement called African Socialist Movement. You want to tell me a little bit about this? Because I want to twin them with the Pan-Africanist views where you tend for all, and wait till you espouse this nothing for common right from the womb of Pan-Africanism, social justice and socialism generally. So tell me a little bit about African socialism, if I get the question right.
I'm not intend for describe my own conclusions as African socialist per se. I believe in socialism. What I mean by socialism, democracy basically. I believe in real democracy, and real democracy is socialism. What does that mean? A situation where the majority of the population will not live in poverty, will not live in a situation where they have to struggle for better condition of, for lack of the necessary condition for human existence, access to safe and clean drinking water, access to healthcare, effective and efficient healthcare, access to decent housing, and the social services we will need for human existence. So if you live in a society like Sierra Leone, for example, you find out, say, the vast majority of the population, more than 90%, they live in abject poverty, underdevelopment, and they go through the most horrible conditions, subhuman conditions. So in that kind of situation, if you say we get a democracy in that kind of environment, what you have is a democracy that has uplifted a handful of individuals, okay, against the majority of the population. It means the democracy will not subject more than 90% of the population into poverty. So in that case, it's a democracy of the few. It's not a democracy of the majority. So when I talk about socialism in that context, what I'm talking about is the emancipation of this greater majority of the people that has been sentenced by the actions of this handful of individuals to conditions of poverty and underdevelopment. So when I talk about socialism, it's not different from what we talk about democracy.
But you're not implying in any sense, shape, or form that the form of socialism where you describe, which happen to be like an antithesis, here to the kind of democracy we talk about, is the solution.
No. What I'm saying is that we have not experienced democracy. We just talk about it and we don't even know what democracy is, because democracy is not separate from socialism. The opposite of socialism is capitalism. Okay, the opposite of democracy is dictatorship. Okay, democracy is basically the quality of the governance or the arrangement in the society. So if the arrangement in a society is terrible, it can be a dictatorship. Okay, so you can have somebody, for example, in Sierra Leone, we've never had anyone who is supposedly social. We never had a socialist government. Okay, so if we talk about oppression of people, the imprisonment of people, violence in the country. We talk about underdevelopment, lack of economic development, and all these indices of poverty. We are not talking about the failure of socialism. We are talking about the failure of individuals who have never in their lives claimed that they are running a socialist state. So, in fact, these are individuals. So, that kind of arrangement is a neoliberal arrangement, an economy that is run and dictated by the IMF and the World Bank and put on the ground by private sector development, where it benefit the handful of individuals. So you cannot call that democracy because you simply have in elections every 5 years that are supposedly contested and also rigged. So I think people then misunderstand what in democracy mean. So when we talk about socialism, what we are talking about is real democracy, popular democracy, a democracy that will provide the common good for the people. Governments are constituted, okay, to provide what we call the common good. And that common good hinges around basic conditions of social and economic development, good roads, good healthcare. But we don't get a situation as Salone where we up to now, from the last 60 years, we record some of the most horrible statistics.
Yeah, we go come to that shortly, because I really want to let you talk about that, in a way you
so when I talk about socialism, when I talk about socialism, I think we got to remove the adjective of African or European or American, because socialism, good governance.
Okay. Let's remove all of it. Let's remove the connections or the compound, to the word itself, socialism, like you say in American, English, or whatever. So let's just talk about the concept of socialism. Is this something that you yourself defining to fit your narrative? It seems like that when you juxtapose it with democracy, which is not working, it then sounds like a problem. But here's the thing, Mr. Bah, I'll yield the floor to you in a minute. You are describing it as if it's all rosy. But if we will look around, we see failure of socialism left, right, and center. If you go to South America, for example, Evo Morales is gone. The other one from Ecuador is gone. Look at what is happening in Venezuela. If we come to Africa, even though we want to remove the African socialism, we know that we toy with this system for a while, but it was a failure. We're not saying that capitalism is the solution, but certainly socialism does not seem to be the answer.
No, I think you examples are not within a proper context. In the first, we'll take Africa as an example. 98% of the individuals who have governed Africa across, the entire landmass of the African continent, 98% of the individuals who don't run governments, who don't in charge of political power for the last 60 years, 50 to 60 years of African independence, from South to West to North and East Africa. 98% of those individuals are individuals who have never claimed to be socialist. Take the case of Sierra Leone, you take the case of Liberia, you take the case of Ivory Coast, okay? Many of these individuals who have run governments are not people who call themselves socialists, okay? Or we not people that we kind of power with socialist parties in power, because there's a difference between having an individual who claims to be socialist in power when you get actual socialism in power. That's a different discussion. But what I'm saying is that your claim that socialism has failed in Africa does not hold. The statistics and the evidence, it doesn't exist. What do we get failure? If you take any country in Africa, what do we talk about failure now of African leadership? We are not talking about the failure of individuals, politicians, we call them socialists. We're talking about politicians who have never said so. And Escobar, for example, was not a socialist. So if people need to complain about what the APC did in the last,
I'm going to have to interject there, Mr. Bah. Yeah, because we then need for go back, because there was a time I was talking about a period of time in which the African continent, you see what we talk again, let's look at that from the wider context. The African continent began for gain independence, colonialism had to be, shredded and destroyed. And what we naturally inclined for do or turn to was not capitalism, it was socialism. And you get people then like Julius,
That's why I told you 98% of the people who have come to power in Africa from independence, what you call independence to now, 98% of those individuals up to today are not individuals who can be described as socialists.
I think you missed the point. I think you missed the point as well. The point what they try to make is.
Let me come to those individuals you tend to point to, who are few.
Yeah, but then we need for understand in this context. I'll give you the floor again. But we need for understand in this context about the then when they actually try for introduce the concept of socialism.
They never did that. That's what I'm saying. You are wrong in saying that. It would be wrong to assume that, because the individuals who claim who attempted to do that, we are not even up to 1% of that population, that African leadership.
And what was the freedom? Yeah, what was the freedom in terms of nation states then? That's what I'm telling you. There was no because you qualify, I mean, percentile wise, waiting have been the number of free African countries.
Yeah, let's get the conversation straightforward and then move forward from this point, because we can't have it in circle. If you want for say socialism has failed and you want for take say the anti-colonial movement in itself, not all the people who opposed to colonialism were socialists or who claim to be socialist. And there's a difference between what you are referring to as pro-independence movements or people who emerge. For example, La Salon, the Magai, the SLPP, will inherit the colonial state. We are not socialists. Okay? You're not going to say because they campaign for independence, that means they are moving towards socialism. The same for Liberia, the same for many other places. So the few places that people claim to be socialists, who try to implement socialist programs, were Sékou Touré, okay, for example. You go to the Congo with Lumumba, okay? You go to Ghana, okay, with Kwame Nkrumah. You go to Tanzania. These were the few handful of individuals who we are not even up to 1% of the African post-colonial, what you call post-colonial leaders, okay? Then when you check the indices of progress in those countries within the few years where the individuals get a power, as against the other countries, you find out, say, the levels of social and economic development were higher than the other countries nearby. You need for just take, for example, even today, look, the countries that are deep in crisis today were the countries who choose the path to neoliberalism immediately after independence. Look at Ivory Coast, where they are. Look at Liberia. In the past, they used to refer to Abidjan as Petit Paris. They used to refer to Monrovia, this in likewise, like small America. But now, what's how we did today? But I think when we begin to talk about what we're talking about, what we need to talk about is the quality of governance. Why has it been impossible to have good governments in Africa? For the last
let's talk about the quality of governance then, and why is it impossible or so difficult for them to get good governance in Africa?
When you talk about that, then you will talk about what is good governance and under which kind of system do we get the kind of governments we would deliver the common good for the people.
It's certainly not socialism. So let's hear you out.
That's what I'm saying. I believe that you cannot have democracy outside of socialism. Okay, that's my own personal conclusions. And why? Because my experience, for example, in Sierra Leone, for that since I have been alive, all the individuals who are there that we're dealing with now are not individuals who claim to be socialist. Okay, and they do not claim that they are implementing anything closer to socialism. So what do we have? We have the challenges of corruption, we have the challenges of underdevelopment, mismanagement of the economy, and all of that. So even if we remove the nomenclature of socialism, how are you going to describe that kind of government? Are you going to call it democracy? What kind of democracy? A democracy that imprisons its own critics, a democracy that suppresses right. We just have a situation in Sierra Leone now where a lawyer, for example, is being hounded for expressing a dissent over a verdict that has been given by a court. So you cannot say, for example, if you compare a system, you say certainly not socialism, then what do you have in Sierra Leone?
Well, you now, see, you keep. I know the bigger picture. The bigger picture, Mr. Bah, is
quality of governance. So
yeah, it's the quality of governance, but we have to talk about socialist in its set.
But that's what I'm saying. I am saying, me believes it. Well, maybe
no. You're fast tracking it. I get where you go, and we will come to that. But it's been fast tracked. First of all, just one go in line with what you say. I do appreciate that, and you'll be given the opportunity, for explain yourself kind of widely. But I think this gets something for do with the position where you take now in terms of somebody being harassed or the quality of government. which is the seditious libel law, which the president of the Republic of Sierra Leone, since we talk about Sierra Leone now, recently killed, if you like. I use the word in a different sense, not figuratively, but I mean, he end them. And in its place is the IMC. I want to let you give viewer them your perspective on these two things. Them one is gone after 56 years. It's now history. Part 5 of them is gone, and then there's a replacement. How do you see this? Because you're a practicing journalist and you're a publisher, you're an author. Waiting are your view about this particular thing, and then you get it floor for floor, Mr. Bah.
Yeah, you know, the fact of the matter is, before we come to legislative reform, okay, the essence of legislative reform, the fact of the matter is, we got to underline the thing, because I see this, why I start this way, because I see this whole campaigns of thanking the president for supposedly repealing or repealing a section of the Public Order Act. And the Public Order Act, we all need to know that now one aspect of the Public Order Act has been amended, which is Part 5 of the Public Order Act. The entire Public Order Act was not just passed against journalists per se, okay? Because as provisions of the Public Order Act deal with the right to expression, aspects of the Public Order Act deal with the right to association and assembly, which have for protest, when for protest. For example, you cannot have a demonstration without seeking police permit. That is because they can invoke the Public Order Act. And that aspect has not been removed from the Public Order Act. The only thing we can say, now they cannot railroad journalists for writing a newspaper. They're not going to bring criminal libel against journalists, which is one couple of sentences we can deal with just the right to expression, okay? Right. But the right to assembly, the right to association, and the right for peacefully demonstrate, okay, is still in the Public Order Act. So really, the Public Order Act has not been repealed per se, has not been gotten rid of. What they got rid of was Part 5 of that law, which only addresses the question of libel. That does not mean the right to free expression in itself has been, you know, liberalized. So the people that pretend, say, oh, they don't get rid of the Public Order Act, these people are just trying to dupe and, you know, the large sector of the Sierra Leonean populace that does not read. Okay, we get a situation, a culture now. Most people talk about issues they don't read. Okay, and this stampede, because they know many people talk will just join conversation because they know actually they're at the basis of the conversation and the actual content of the conversation and what it's all about. But because they hear it and they just jump into it. But Part 5 of the Public Order is what we've got to read of. And the question is, what we got to understand, when you get it bad, governments, for the most part, when governments are dangerous, they don't need laws, because there are many laws the government can use. You know, for the most part, law is basically the opinion of those who are in charge of power. Okay, they can decide today that this thing is legal, and they can decide that it is illegal based on their own interest. Okay, they can use the laws the way they think it fit. Extraordinary powers, the power of interpretation, okay, the power of it serves their motive. So this brings us to the question of what other institutional mechanisms we have in the society to checkmate the excesses of power.
Very important one, and we'll come right to that. But this is the way globally, this is the way it functions, right? This is the way governments function, not only in Sierra Leone, but when you put them on the weighing scale, of course, one side will be more heavier than the other or will tip the balance more than the other. But this is the way governments operate. They've got the machineries, the instruments of state, not so?
In other societies, the
institutions,
the structures that check governments, okay, then exist. For example, I don't like to use the United States as an example, but you see where Congress will, in some cases, because there is opposition majority in the Congress, they can at least check the excesses of the executive. We get a situation at Sierra Leone, you see what happened. A parliamentary coup d'etat, where the executive branch of government decide to use the police, which is an arm of the executive, for invade parliament during the beginning of this current parliament. and decide for impose a Speaker of Parliament because they wanted to hijack the leadership of the legislative arm of government, and went as far as using.
So do we have evidence to that effect? We know the circumstances does exist, but they talk about hard evidence, and you are a man of letter, you're a man of paper.
Yeah. But this is plain. It happened in front of our eyes. Okay. Not only that, the ECOWAS had to dispatch a delegation to Freetown because everybody was shocked. You cannot use police people. You know, the imposition of a speaker, the processes through which that speaker was imposed was, you know, an arbitrary method. Okay. Not only that, the use of judicial precedent for also remove members of the opposition from parliament because the executive, the party in power, want to control parliament. Okay, so what they are doing is they have eroded, by that they have eroded a fundamental component of the democratic arrangement of the country by making sure that they are disabling the institutions for checkmate the excessive use of power. That is why you have a situation now, for example, besides all of these things they happen, issues of accountability, issues of this cannot be raised. And are the very people, again, we keep hearing about corruption in parliament. This is all part of the process of undermining institutions we're supposed to exist for checkmate some of these excesses of power.
So Mr. Bah, hold your thought right there. I know you did in your element now in the flow, and this is not something where just there at the tip of your finger, so you can just go on and on and on. And I believe, say, Fambule, and I appreciate you very spirited conversation. Yeah, Fambule, when I do allow shape this video tonight, we've got a very special guest on the platform, and he's an investigative journalist. He don't do boku work. He's an author and publisher. He's also a politician and a journalist. Wonder how they reconcile the two in we country. But here's the thing, you know, based on which you talk, Mr. Bah. Part of the process, you know, we make fumble and confuse is, for example, the Political Party Association and the Political Party Registration Commission. One of them is clearly in the Constitution. We get a constituted duty, you know, for carry out. But yet there are many questions, you know, around the operation of that particular body right now as we speak. And I bring that to you because you seem for the flow right in that direction. You can help for shed more light on the PPRC, the essence of farm, the real meaning of farm, and waiting to go on right now, as opposed to the normative stage of cooking up, like election process.
Yeah, the PPRC, as somebody, we don't challenge the PPRC's legitimacy in the first place. In 2009, when we decided for float the idea of a party, we even raised these questions: how provisions of the Political Parties Act of 2002, in we own estimation, seem for affect, the provisions of the Constitution where give individuals, with fundamental rights, for example, the right to association, the right to conscience, freedom of conscience, and the right to free expression. If you get a situation where you get a secondary legislation, we put conditions, for example, that in order for you to be able to exercise your right to association, you get to pay money, and this huge conditions where you need for fulfill, for form for constitute a political party and be able to articulate you philosophy around governance and how for basically discharge the constitutional right, the rights where the Constitution give you, that's a limitation. So the Political Parties Act of 2002 imposed limitations on the exercise of civic rights, especially when it comes to right to association. So that we think, say, we have a secondary, although the Constitution provides that we need for get an institution where for manage or help for regulate the activities of political parties, but the conditions for make citizens able to exercise the right to political association has been, they don't put limitation on them by putting monetary requirements other kinds of requirements where the ordinary citizen not going to achieve. Okay, so these provisions, and now there's even discussion within the PPRC to amend the Political Parties Act for even increase the amount of money where you need for register a party. So that's like they are charging people in order to be able to exercise their right to association, which the Constitution says is supposed to be a fundamental human right.
Yeah.
That you should be able to discharge without hindrance, except in situations where it threatens the security of the state, which is also a provision that can be, debatable. So that, for me, that's one aspect. Then you get to talk about now the staffing of the PPRC, how people are appointed. For the most part, ruling parties will appoint people into these institutions where they head them, where we say they are card-carrying members. There were discussions around this current PPRC chairman being a member of the SLPP, card-carrying member of the party. Okay, so in that situation, you find out that the individual will be more committed to protecting the interests of the party in power, because it's
yeah. But don't let the speculation, Mr.
No. These are not speculations. Documentary.
No, but you just said it was alleged. Like the current PPRC chairperson is an alleged card carrying member.
No, it's not.
Speculate, but I'm not saying you get hard evidence on many things then, because I don't look at some of your work.
Yeah, we're therefore able to get these discussions in a frank way, because we cannot skip through discussions when we know there are evidentiary basis for us to have this conversation, because these individuals are being paid from taxpayers' money. Okay, now we responsibility as citizens for address some of these issues, because they have to do. They get a lot to do with the development of the country. If we decide to avoid these conversations and just skip through them on the basis that they are mere allegations, we're not being true to the country. So we have to identify these as problems, because if we do not identify them and have a frank conversation around them, we're not able for, pinpoint these problems.
That wasn't the points I've been making. I absolutely agree with you. These conversations, we need to have them. We need clarifications on them.
We cannot talk about the independence and credibility of democratic institutions if we not get at the point of how do we talk about the staffing of these institutions.
Absolutely.
Okay? And if the appointment and leadership of these institutions, of some of these people in these institutions, are not depoliticized, then you cannot have a situation where people will rely on democratic institutions for render them the kind of service we're not supposed to render, for protect with democracy. Societies cannot evolve when we keep eroding the significance of our institutional arrangement. And those significance of the institutional arrangement starts with how we staff these institutions, how we recruit people into some of these institutions. If we recruit party members, ruling party members to these institutions, then it means that the institutions are of no use. It means we are paying money to these individuals for doing nothing. They will just cripple the democratic culture where they try to evolve, because democracy is never a finished project. It's something that's in progress. And the only way we will germinate and grow to the level where we want to, where we will serve the purpose of development, now for make we able get institutions will be independent.
So just because for the sake of time, Mr. Bah, I get a couple of questions so I want to push in quickly so you're able to address. I mean, there is so much. I mean, the chat room is buzzing, and it's like you've got a host of followers in the chat room. Obviously, we do agree with this democratic process that is being stifled, because we see them circumstantially and on waiting to happen. Now, you were a member of a political party, I think a spokesperson for one of the political parties. And there were 16 or 17 parties at elections. After elections, it seems like there are only 4. Where are the rest, and what exactly is going on, Mr. Bah?
No, it not necessarily means political parties are not just for elections. That we have to underline. And not every political party will be in parliament at every. It can happen, because when we get political parties represent different interests. Okay, There are different shades of opinion in the country, especially in our own country. We have a multi-party constitution, which guarantees or allow people to constitute political organizations of their own choice in order to be able to participate in the debate around what it takes to build the country based on their own conclusions, philosophical and other kinds of conclusions around what it takes. The Constitution forbids the formation of ethnic parties. The Constitution forbids the formation of religious parties, but they allow people the right for get political parties will reflect their own political philosophy and for canvas people towards that philosophy. So parties can form, stay for 10, 20, and 30 years and decide, and succeed for canvas people and towards the end. But yeah, I agree with you. The danger in Sierra Leone is the fact that at every given election, we get new parties emerging just for cut deals. Okay, that has been what I have seen with me on direct involvement in the
process of
the political process. First and foremost, in 2009, we decided, say, we will form a political party. We reflect our own political beliefs and ideas around good governance. We were unable to do that because of the composition of the commission at the time. We have these struggles. So we decided to form a coalition. The African Socialist Movement decided to form a coalition with an existing party on set principles in which we said, in the elections of 2012, we will not support the APC or SLPP in the situation where the question of runoff. So the individuals who we formed that coalition, we decided to support the APC on a day before the election. So we broke the alliance. We said, no, we are no longer part of this. So we went on radio and said, we, the socialists who we are part of this arrangement, have decided that we cannot be part of. Our relationship with the NDA has ended. And I have ceased to become a spokesperson of this organization because they have violated the terms of our agreement. So, but basically what are they saying? So you have these parties there, but political parties can be active even if they are not in parliament. That's what I'm trying to underline, because then they're supposed to represent the people who believe in their philosophy and ideology and help to hold government accountable, because political parties are also
it is true. You are absolutely right, Mr. Bah. But what I was going to add there is in the absence of funding, and funding is made available by donor agencies. I'm sure that is correct, because international organizations to the PPRC. Correct me there if I'm wrong.
Okay. No, the PPRC, the PPRC.
So they make these funds available to these parties for strengthening them so that they can strengthen the democracy. So it doesn't appear like political parties. They appear periodically, only when there are elections.
No, the political parties act, in fact, forbid anybody a voter, anyone who is not eligible to vote in an election in Sierra Leone should not contribute money into a political party in Sierra Leone. That is in the law. It's in the Political Parties Act. Okay. In fact, that includes companies, corporations, foreign entities. So donors can contribute money as it is right now through the PPRC as an institution. But the extension of those funds to political parties is not sanctioned by law. The law talks, supposed to, but now political parties are advocating that political parties should receive institutional funding. Okay. But that is not a requirement. It's not something that's within the law for now.
So these are contradictions that are ongoing. Let me just read quickly from the chat room. Chernor Alpha Bah, Mr. Bah, how the media and CSOs should hold government accountable while they are receiving financial support from the same system that we want them to expose. I guess the question is rhetorical. ACC, somebody else, Mr. Lamin Denke, ACC, HRCSL, PPRC, NEC, NCD, etc., have comprised as a result of heads being party card holders. Okay, I think that's the point. Safi Patricia Kane, Mr. Bah is right. There's no democracy in Sierra Leone. The poor people are still marginalized as they have to exercise their democratic rights and liberties. Let's identify the problem and solve the situation at once. Here, that's from Mr. Zuan Kovalo. Okay, and there's much more. Let me read one last one. Paul Kanu. All the institutions that are supposed to be independent have been corrupted. Therefore, they cannot function effectively. The judiciary, parliament, PPRC, NEC, etc., and so-called civil societies, etc., etc. Okay, Fambu Lemuna, thank you very much for tuning in. We come almost towards the end of this program. Mr. Bah is also the author of a book I want to ask you about. back, I think, was that 5-6 years ago? You authored a book, and the title alone, is kind of eye-catching and scathing and the rest of it. I haven't read the book, let me be honest, and I try to get one today. I think now one green I left na Amazon. But Fambule, I want to tell you about this book, and the book is called Ebola Outbreak in West Africa, Corporate Gangsters, Multinationals, and Rogue Politicians. Now imagine the title. You haven't gone into the book yet. So I admonish everybody, you see, always they say, for let we be clued on, these are the things that we need for the look for. So try and get Mr. Bah in book. It is on Amazon. Now 1 left there, but they say more supplies they come. And I try to get one myself soon. Tell me a little bit about this book. Waiting do you write, the book in that kind of fashion in terms of, I look at the, somebody tell me about the book anyway, so then give me an insider view of waiting the inside. In other words, direct accusation at the people who were responsible then, including the president then, Mr. Ernest Bai Koroma. And they say you did not mince your words, you were being very direct. What team push you, here for do this? I mean, sounds like you were spiteful, if I get it right.
No, you know the right book as a spiteful project. You get a crisis when it happen, and then you witness the crisis, both as a spectator and somebody that's affected, because you must get a friend, a relative, or somebody where lost what we lost. But besides, the Ebola outbreak, right, tragedy for every Sierra Leonean, throughout West Africa back, we see the situation. So the book deal with a response, basically, I write them as a response to a group of German scientists. We undertake a research from the Robert Koch Institute. When the outbreak happened, the WHO hired a team of scientists from Germany for go to Guinea and develop and find out the cause of the outbreak. So the narrative around how the outbreak starts, now from Germany, come on, okay? Then Mr. Go decide say no. Why read the report? I say no, this cannot be true, because then pinpoint the outbreak on a child that was 2 years old according to them and all that. And when I look at the report, I see the inconsistencies in the report. So the first and foremost, the book was a response to these European scientists who provide a narrative where the whole world believes. And I decided to say, no, this is not true, that this is what is wrong in this report, that are one. And secondly, I look again how the African governments respond to the outbreak in terms of generating money, misuse of the money, and their on lack of preparation for the outbreak and all that. So that you see, and then how groups of organizations now profit from this outbreak, from NGOs to pharmaceutical companies and all them here. So then we are then the people that were lost. So the other people. So that is why you see this trinity of forces, multinationals, corporate gangsters, multinationals, and rogue politicians. It's a trinity of forces that come together.
So it wasn't only your government at the time. Mr. Bah, last squeeze in 1 or 2 things quickly. Thank you so much for this. And somebody, they say, we don't want the show to end. And I can understand why, because this is kind of very, very informative. Now you did away from home, Mr. Bah, and you've been away from home for quite a while. Somebody where they're doing PhD from away from home means that you've been away from home. We know say you did contribute back home in many different respects, but most of us may not know how, only via your articles, the way you write. And you've been writing some very powerful articles, you and your team. And those articles are unearthing, just like me, introduction to the program, investigative journalism, unearthing, hard facts, use material, then evaluate them and put them out there to the public. Tell me what's in the influence the particular things in the way una they do. They go deep into into the vaults of government, and bringing out these uncomfortable stories. What is this all about, Mr. Bah?
Yeah, I'm using the way you talk about that, because you make it sound so extraordinarily.
It is because I say so because I'm very outgoing out there, and I get a platform where I can talk to a few hundred people. And so I know just what it is, Even by putting your flyer out, yeah, when Mr. Badi come, it generated so much interest.
Oh,
The
that's
number not too great now, but I'm sure say thousands are going to watch this, yeah, kind of later. And this is what they say. Some people are interested in those articles, of course, for different reasons. Some people are committed, yeah, to the independence, freedom, and emancipation. Something that we try for pursue, while others it's just purely selfishness, politically, yeah, indoctrination. Yeah, the question is,
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
why, how, and the contribution.
no, for me, I just think say an extension of already work that I've been doing for some time now. What draw me into media basically now the fact that I think say the media for me now a tool of resistance, now a tool for educate and also for hold government accountable, and not to
Yeah.
miss not the thing we start now. That has been the traditional role of the press. We talk about history in a couple of minutes ago in which they talk about independence and all that. But when you look alone, you get I.T. Wallace Johnson, for example, who did likewise. You get the virtually every
The
people that,
Blindens, for
yeah,
example.
Bidens, the
Yeah,
Kwame
yeah,
Nkrumahs, that's
yeah, the
it.
Kwame
So
Nkrumahs, the
even
Wale Munireres, and Jomo
even in recent,
Kenyattas. Yeah.
years, you look at Carlos Cardoso and Mozambique,
Yep.
Nobel Zongo.
Yeah. Samura
So,
Machel,
yeah, these are
Amilcar Cabral.
individuals who don't use the media successfully
Yeah.
as tools for expand the democratic arrangement, tools for hold governments accountable. So, and one way for do this now for serve, now for ordinary people, like I say, no get access to certain information. So how do we use our skills, knowledge, and experience
Yep.
for help people to see how governments they function?
Yes.
So that's responsible for this. And what I can find out, say that the most effective way for dealing with stubborn regimes over the years or dictatorial regimes, especially governments we very crooked and what's good enough for you have to do it's like you have a patient, okay? You get this patient that is sick and still they pretend say he well and so what you have to do is to force a surgery. You force this surgical operation in which you open up the intestine of this patient and say, look at the disease. So there is no denial. So that's the kind of thing. So when you are confronted with a corrupt and a dictatorial regime that is terrifying people into fear and silence, and people know it's corrupt, but they are scared to say it, it takes the courage to just open it up, just like you do a surgery and open the intestine of this patient that's sick and show both the patient and the people who are not, who this patient they pretend to say well, and show them, say, look at the disease. That's what this thing is all about. It's about showing
Last word, Mr. Ba. I promise you, this is the last question. Obviously, Fambulem, just a quick one again. Una go to www.africanistpress.com. www.africanistpress.com. The brother get a massive work load where we all can kind of benefit from, and he's been in this domain for quite a while. Mr. Sef just they get for experimental now, I must confess, but he's been writing for quite a long time. He was the editor of the Concord Times, I believe, yeah, and this is some time ago. It's not secret to some people, but it's still secret to others. This is my last question to you, Mr. Ba, and it come in a compound form. Now, most people that we know say you've been very critical of government, and it's not just now. Yeah, it's also in the then. It's also going back. You were critical of EBK, and when I say critical, very, very critical. And so are you of this present government. And they say that you can't tie up such people, in any sense, shape, or form. You go rather tie up with people that want to take the country forward in a different sense, as how you articulate them at some point during this interview, but not with this duopoly what we get with them called SLPP and APC. They seek, a total change from the two. Here's the question in two parts. One, due to your work where you do, you are very famous around the world. Does the president or in team call you and say, Chernor, you need for slow down? Yeah. You're not going to say yes or no to this because you're a very clever man. You know how you will answer this. And then finally, waiting at the solution because we need for the talk solutions now. I know part of what you talk largely was identifying the problem, and the analogy we the give just now somebody sick and say he's sick, is still a deny. Pass and go plead the belly, open the intestine and say, look, the team. Then finally you go get for agree. Waiting at the solution or some of the solutions because it's so massive to some of the problems. You get the floor and close the floor, please.
Like, I don't do this work to be called upon, to be called upon by anyone. Okay, I know many of the people in government, they are not new to me. Okay, both in the past and in the present. So I don't need to do this work to reach out to any one of them, okay, or for any one of them to reach me. I feel obligated. We cannot all keep, go silent in the face of what's happening, because we get a moral obligation as citizens for help, for improve the quality of governance of the country. And one way for doing now some of these kind of conversations, this work that you're doing, for example, setting up, okay, leaving everything that you're doing to have this 1 hour of conversation. Nobody's paying you to do it. You just feel obligated to do it. It's a significant contribution, because you will be using this time to do other things that you'll be making money from. Okay, but you decide, say, you're doing it, bringing people together to have a conversation around the country. And don't think that this is not creating impact. It creates your own impact, because one, you're educating people, you help it. I believe strongly that a well-informed population, okay, will arrive at a consensus about what it takes to free them from the current situation that we are confronted with. We have had this situation for 60 years before we were born, and now we experience them. We do not want to hand over this kind of struggle to our own people. And which is why when I look what you do, I look at what other guys are doing, it gives me courage, it gives me stamina to continue to do what I'm doing as part of my own contribution to this wider process. So the question about the solution, we're already solving the situation. This action where you take for create this platform so that people will have this kind of conversation is a significant solution, part of the process for resolve the problem. So what we try to do, so we are getting at a collective, we did get this conversation, we arrive at a collective consensus, okay, around what we need. Already people have been talking about the APC and SLPP, the problem that there are people who are hung up to these parties because they believe it's their grandparents, it's their they say, me are born APC, me are born SLPP. But when there's crisis in the country, commodity prices are going up, everybody's catching hell. When school fees go up, everybody knows the same thing. When disease comes, everybody knows the same. So the fact of the matter is, there's nothing wrong in being born APC, being born SLPP, but the fact of the matter is, do we have a good society? Do we have a developed country? How long those people who were my friends in the past 10 years, who were sharing what I write, are now the people who send me private messages of insult. so for me, I look at this, I'm amused. Yeah. The experience for me, going through these experiences between, first we were engaged with Tijan Kaba, that phase done. They call me APC come, they begin calling me SLPP. Now some of them try to call me APC, but it's not the work this time around, because so this time it's not working. So they start to call me beta. They say beta, that's but what I'm saying is, regarding solutions, we are involved in the search for solutions. This is how society is developed. Your effort, this then and now platform that you have, we are 200 people, 20 people are listening to what we're having now. It's no small thing. The multiplication of this kind of work, including what I do, what you do, what others are doing, Nainga for Change Salon, because we are talking about ideas about how to improve our country. And nobody pays you for what you're doing. Nobody's paying me for what we do. So we just feel morally obligated. What I do is not different from what you are doing. Okay, what you do so very, very phenomenal. Other people are doing likewise, both in the country and outside of the country. Some people are unable to do this because they not get the technology, they not get the internet, not get this facility for doing, but they are more talented people who have more good ideas than we have, but they cannot do what we are doing because they are either affected by lack of resources to do it. So I think we just have to continue doing what we're doing. We will definitely get the society that we want. We already agree that what is happening in Sierra Leone is not good. What we saw in the last 10 years is not good. And the situation is getting worse nowadays because what confused me, or what surprised me most, now when I look at this hard evidence of stealing, the level of theft, I begin to wonder, what would somebody be doing with these billions and billions and billions that they're stealing? You know, you can go this money. Anyway, I mean, how can you pay, for example, the financial secretary $8,000 to $9,000, and you pay university lecturer less than $2,000 a month?
My goodness.
So that's why you see a situation where people will leave the university to become politicians, to become members of political parties.
And then you say you want fight corruption.
Yeah, the license to a good life, to a good job, has to be your relationship with the party in power. So people are willing to kill for that.
Yeah.
So if we have a situation, this easy solution to that kind of situation is harmonize the payroll. Pay the teacher the same salary that you're paying a minister. Nobody wants to be a minister in other than to just serve willingly, just from, say, the national service. But now people want to be, they appoint somebody as head of a small department, you will see the congratulations all over the place because that person has gotten the license to steal public money. And his friends are happy for him because now they can depend on him for some of the corrupt relationships. Yeah. So people, and when they dismiss that person, people will go, they go tell an Osh, they cry very. Yeah. So this is the kind of, because why public service is no longer a national service way to do, because it's a promotion to
license to steal.
License to steal. So until we arrive at a point where people understand national service as part of the process to build a nation, that you can be a teacher and your salary is the same as you're comfortable. You know, the left classroom where you have independence to go to and teach and come on, nobody dictate to you. But now there are people working in this government, for example, who know that the government is corrupt. Things are not working right. They can support it. They can close their eyes. These were people who spoke against this thing, but they don't care because they are benefiting. They are either directly beneficiaries or their relatives are in power. They are also by extension benefiting from it. So they prefer to support what they criticized 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So why? Because the state is the only avenue for good employment, for good living standards. We have to talk about, when we start this publication, we started by salaries, talking about the huge salary disparities between political appointees. You have a situation in Sierra Leone right now where they pay contractual workers, when are party members, $300, $400, $500 a day. In a country like Sierra Leone, you pay somebody, and these people again are not only getting one contract, they're getting contracts in 2, 3, 4 departments. So they have a cartel in which they will assign contract, put some people
when the average Sierra Leonean can't even barely find food to eat.
Exactly. You have teachers, healthcare workers, okay, who are not making up to 2 million leones a month, $200 a month. University professors who cannot make up to $3,000 a month, and you pay political appointees $500 a day.
Wow. And that also have like a spiraling effect on the economy, inflation, and the rest of it.
This is how you talk about an over-bloated payroll. When you say this, they will say, oh, the opposition, the regime.
Yes, the APC journalists.
How long are we going to live between this argument around APC? So this is why we talk about APC SRPP is a problem, because they use it to obstruct the actual conversation. Yeah. And these things don't have to do with parties. It has to do with the lives of people, with the survival of the country itself. You understand? So we have to have these kind of conversations to see how they address them, because it's not good for APC people, for APC supporters, it's not good for SRPP supporters, it's not good for the country, it's not good for anyone, including those who are not interested in politics. They've made the situation so worse that now people are now going to become politicians, even when they don't. You will see lawyer who is supposed to be independent now will depend on politics because they have to be appointed to board chairman, commissions, and all of this, because that's the only place they get good jobs. You will see the same professors, the same. So it's everywhere. It has become so worse that you begin to wonder how we go change this. So
the pandemic.
Yeah, exactly. Like a
on pandemic. A national level.
So really, I don't take lightly the work that you do, the platform you have, and what others are doing. I think we are on the right track. Let us continue to educate our people. A well-informed population will definitely take it upon themselves to change the country. So not to me or you, this now we own part of the place. So we just keep doing this thing that we're doing, the sacrifice. The worst we can get are the insults. That's all you get.
Yeah.
But it will not get worse than that. You know, the situation in Sierra Leone is worse than the insults that they are sending in private messages. So I don't get discouraged. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and let's keep having this conversation. I know it's difficult to have this national to talk about the problems and how we get out of this in one go, but I'm hoping that our audience we haven't disappointed them so far. But let's keep having the conversation. I think that one, I don't know if this closes the dialogue, but that's how I will answer.
Yeah, I will think so. And you've closed it on a higher note. Although people want to let it carry on, but I can promise when I say Mr. Bah will come again and again and again, because if you just listen to how he closed the program, you understand say his interest is conscientizing, like I can say on this platform, the one that we're not conscious. So it's a duty, it's a kind of sacred duty. If una hear and throughout the conversation, it's a kind of calling. And I don't say this, and myself kind of impressed with the guest, here tonight, because myself they look for anybody, despite the work why they do and the reason why they do this work. And the man speak for me when he spoke just now. Now in my behalf, he speak like say he don't watch and understand exactly the sacrifices, the insults, the heap of insults that we get. But that cannot phase us. It's certainly not going to phase me. And I don't prove that many times. They don't try me many times. Now they don't stretch out to my family. I mean, show some decency, show some courage, left the gutter behavior. Let's be serious. It's about we country. It's not about region. It's not about tribe, but it's about we country. We don't get any package from anybody. What you would do here, na contribution solely way, na from your own pocket and your own time. And the man spoke for me, and that's I mean. But for a long time, I haven't had any guests, we close on such a high note on a national basis. We appeal to everybody. And as soon as I can see on this platform, we say information and power. We believe, say, an informed population, now a population where they become conscious. So we will continue for drive that information. They out there, it's like the parable of the sower and the Bible. The man they sow in seed them, he just the two way them. Some fell, on fertile soil, others fell by the wayside. Of course, the ones that fell on fertile soil, then grow, then germinate, then born. The other one, and we fell in a hard gone and, then died and perished. Such is the nature of life. So we are not going to give up. So all we can say, let's have a conversation. Let's talk about substance. Let's talk about issues. Mr. Bah, I really want to tell you thank you. I want to let family know say no more. We're not going to shy away, for talking about the story them, regardless of how controversial they are, regardless of how many insults are thrown our way. No subject matter is out of bounds. No subject matter, I repeat, is out of bounds. We're going to continue being fearless because when you do something right, there's no fear in you because you feel saying that's something right. These are God-fearing people and no more can do that kind of thing there. Those people who are not God-fearing, that they can operate in the darkness and in the scheme of things, then they fail. It's just a matter of time. So these things might not happen in my lifetime, but definitely the works that we do here will follow in and call legacy. Then I wait man good farm. Then they left their legacy the day, and later they come for their fruits. Oh, Mr. Bah, I thank you very, very much, sir. I will talk to you soon again. You definitely get so much, here for and to this platform. We believe in them. So thank you again, my brother, and thank you very much for appearing. Family, we will close the program with a song. I want to play on a Bob Marley track. They use the roots for make them fire for cook the raw food. And a big parable land, big parable. But I want to let una listen to una and for una self, yeah? Really want to let una listen to and for una self. It's Bob Marley's song. This is what we do here at this platform. We provide information and let people then process the information and do things where go benefit the nation. Yeah? Okay. In behalf of the platform now, I've been your host and presenter, Prince Emil Koma.